Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I am Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have got a special guest on today. Met this guy, I don't even know, it's maybe been 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've become friends. We've hung out on some live streams. This dude is awesome. Can't wait to hear his story. I want to welcome my buddy Christopher Rausch to the show. Welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, good morning, Ken. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You're out in Cali.
Rocking and rolling. Yes, we are. We have it never rains in Southern California. We got the rain, which is good.
Real? You have rain in Southern Cal?
Yeah.
Where are you? Down San Diego?
I'm actually a little bit north of that. I'm in Riverside. So right between Riverside, Orange County, Los Angeles. So I'm the other metropolitan here in Southern California.
Nice. I've been to San Diego one time.
Yeah, it's beautiful down there.
It's so beautiful down there. I've never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous city.
So listen, man, I started this show a couple of years ago to give back to the world, help people get unstuck. And I know you're a coach. You do some really cool things, and this is about you telling your story and helping people get unstuck. So let's start with where you were born and raised.
I was born a poor black child. No, actually, I miss SoCal. What's up, Patricia? Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ken, for having me here. I was born in a little city here in Los Angeles, California called Inglewood. Some of you may know that it's part of South Central Los Angeles. It's not one of the nicest places to live. So imagine February 26, 1969. Actually, it was 10 days of rain when I was born. My mom made sure to tell me that when I was born, it was a very depressing time in Southern California. It was not only depressing for the rain, but it was depressing for my life. And this is the hero's journey. And I just want to tell you guys that I've told this story probably thousands of times by now. And you know, it's the hero's journey, and it's part of my life that makes what it is. So I encourage you just to listen and understand, and just really look for the opportunities where I had positions in my life where I had to make decisions in order to get where I am. Otherwise, I would probably be dead or in jail, which is the truth. So yeah, Los Angeles. It was Inglewood, California, 1969. I was born. My mom was suffering from various psychological disorders, physical dependencies, drugs, alcohol, men, and so it was an interesting time. And from what I remember, from what my mom told me and my sister told me, that the place we lived in Inglewood was just full of cockroaches. We couldn't sleep with the lights off and stuff like that. And
wow, why?
It was just a nasty place to live. My mom said that she tried using bug spray and stuff like that. We were on welfare, food stamps and things of that nature. So it was just a nature of the situation that we were living in. And so it's funny because up until I was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, I never slept with the lights off. Even when we moved to another place, I just never knew how to sleep with the lights off because we always had the lights on so the cockroaches wouldn't come out.
So is that where you went to, like, elementary school and no?
No, we were in Inglewood for about the first 6 years of my life. I had my mom in my life, of course, and then I had my sister who was from a different dad. She was there part-time. Her dad was, well-to-do and wasn't on food stamps and stuff like that. So she went to go stay with him. And then every once in a while would have to come back and live in the mess and the muck and live with my mom and have to take care of me. My sister was 7 years older than I was. My mom told me when she was in Inglewood before that it was predominantly a white neighborhood. And over the time that we lived there, it became a predominantly black neighborhood. Good morning, Cindy. And through that process, I learned about discrimination, but I learned, in a sense, what I used to call reverse discrimination, because I was the only white kid necessarily in a black neighborhood. And
wow.
when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I would have to say, maybe 3, even younger, because my son's 3 now. Probably around 4 or 5 years old, I started playing with the kids and started developing friendships in the neighborhood. But at the same time, when I would go ride my big wheel around, I got called all sorts of names and I got picked on, and I didn't really understand it. So I'd go back to my house and I would tell my mom, and she said, "Oh, it's because of the color of your skin." And I'm like, you're trying to explain that to a 4 or 5 year old. I'm like, I don't know. I just know that people look different and everybody's cool. But I progressively started getting more and more picked on. They started trying to steal my toys and stuff like that. So blessings to my mom. It's one of the few things that she did that was really, well, she did a lot of good things in my life, I should say. But we wound up having to leave Inglewood because it just got so bad. She was trying to put me into school and it just wasn't working. And I just didn't understand. It was part of the problem early on in my life. I tell people that I was somewhat rejected by my mom because she really didn't want to be a mom. She said later on in life, she told me, she goes, I was actually going to put you up for adoption. And I was like, wow. And she'd already told me that she had like 6 miscarriages. She already had 3 abortions. And so when I started asking her a little bit about my life, I said, well, why didn't you put me up for adoption? And she said, you know, they said, I gave birth to you. And the nurse said, do you want to see him? And she goes, I was like, kind of like, no. She goes, but yeah, go ahead, let me see him. And she said that they placed me on her chest. And she just looked at me and she was just like, oh crap. She goes, it's just you and me, kid. Because again, my sister was in and out of the story quite a bit.
Wow.
And so yeah, I got, you know, I don't know if it was a blessing or a curse. I think everything happens for a reason. I know everything happens for a reason. But she did tell me later in life, she said, you know, I really shouldn't have been a mother.
Was your sister, did you say she was older than you or younger than you?
Yeah, she's older than me. She's 7 years older than me. I don't speak to her anymore though. Wow.
So you, and you said at 6 or 7 is when you moved out of Englewood?
It was actually about 5 or 6, about 1975, 1976. Yeah. So it was a situation where my mom was admitted to, she said she self-admitted herself to a psychiatric ward. So for a month of my life before that happened, I had to go stay with her boyfriend's parents, which was very awkward. I still remember that.
Wow.
Yeah. There was no other place for me to go. I couldn't go with my sister's dad because he hated her. My biological father was already married with another family, and coincidentally, his wife was pregnant at the same time as my mom was pregnant with me. So I still have brothers and sisters out there on his side of the family. But yeah, we can get to that story later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just became crazy. My mom met this guy and her boyfriend, who I went to stay with his parents and everything, and she got released from the hospital. And it was just getting bad because we were the only white people in the neighborhood. So we moved to Anaheim, which is in Orange County. And he came to live with us. My sister was coming to live with us. We were living in a 4-bedroom house. And for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, wow, we're going to have a family. Because I saw other people having families. And I was like, okay, we don't have family. We don't sit down and have dinner. My sister's mostly taking care of me. My mom's constantly gone. And if I'm with my mom, I'm on the Los Angeles buses constantly. I mean, she drugged me every single place. I didn't have daycare and all that other stuff. So it was pretty crazy. But the good thing about my childhood, Ken, is that it really introduced me to music, and it introduced me to a method of being able to self-soothe. So I still have all my mom's phonograph records. And so whenever I get sad or anything, I can go put on Simon and Garfunkel. I could go put on Neil Diamond. I could go put on Creedence Clearwater Revival. And I remember as a little boy, just sitting there staring at the record spinning and looking at the graphics of the album covers and be kind of like, okay, let me get lost in this. So at least I was introduced to that.
Wow. So, Led Zeppelin.
She didn't have Led Zeppelin, oddly enough. No? She was never into Led Zeppelin. No, it was more like Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, more of the folk rock, James Taylor.
Yeah.
What's crazy about that, Ken, is that I became a metalhead pretty early on in life. I listened to Van Halen, AC/DC, Kiss. And it wasn't until my mom, after she turned 50, she became a huge metalhead. I mean, she met Ozzy Osbourne. She loved Korn. She flipped a switch and she became mad about heavy metal. So for a period of our life, way down the road, we actually became pretty good friends for a minute.
So here's, so you said AC/DC, Van Halen, that's Kiss. Heavy metal back then. We're the same age. I may be a little bit older than you, but like, what is the new Five Finger Death Punch and these crazy heavy metal bands today? Like, I can't even keep up with some of it, but
yeah.
So you, so where were you when you started school? Anaheim?
Yeah. So technically I did go to school for a minute in Englewood, but it just didn't happen. I was just walking through the halls and I remember getting pushed and punched and stuff like that. So yeah, the first time I did go to daycare. I went to preschool for a minute in Torrance, I think it was.
Okay.
So I did do that for a second. But yeah, first grade was my first introduction into school, and boy, that was a shit show.
Yeah. So you, when you ended up going to, I guess it was elementary, all of that, was that all in Anaheim? Is that where you went to school most of your life or all of your life?
Yeah, it was pretty much from the time when I was 6 years old till the time I was about 13. So we lived in Anaheim
Okay.
during that period of time, and that was a very interesting point in my life. There was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of mental abuse, a lot of fighting between my mom and her boyfriend, a lot of fighting between my mom and my sister. My sister ultimately left to live with her dad permanently when I was 9 years old. So it was just basically her boyfriend left and my sister left, and it was just me and the crazy mom and me trying to keep her in check. So it was a pretty significant point in my time. My stepfather loosely termed. He threw a screwdriver at my head one time and almost killed me. Fortunately, I was fast. Wow. All because I was sitting in his recliner chair when he got home and he wanted to watch the news and I was watching a cartoon. And yeah, so I was the first kid. This is funny. I was the first kid on my block that had a black and white television in his room. This is how old I am. Well, how old we are. So it was, my mom pissed him off and went and bought this $100 or something like that, black and white TV, so I could have a TV in my room. But then again, it just isolated me further. So I was like, okay, here I am. I come home from school. I'm a latchkey kid. I sit on the front doorstep for 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours sometimes, waiting for her to get home. Then I would go into my room and stay there.
Wow, dude. So how did you do?
30 cats and 4 dogs.
Huh?
30 cats and 4 dogs lived with us.
No way.
That wasn't even Inglewood too. Yeah. Yeah. My mom
30
was a huge
cats.
Yeah. Sometimes probably more. My mom was a cat freak. The hierarchy in the world was my mom, cigarettes, booze, the cats, the dog, and then whoever else. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. Yeah. That's the way I lived most of my life with her.
So how did you do in school? How's your academia?
Well, considering I was called stupid for as long as I can remember, it wasn't very good. I didn't fit in. My mom was socially awkward. She was brilliant. She was completely brilliant, brain smart. I mean, it was like, an inspired mind. What do you want to call it? I mean, brain smart, book smart, brilliant, people smart, stupid as the day is long. So I didn't grow up with any social skills. I didn't know how to interact with people. I mean, if you think about just the story I've told so far, and there's so many stories in between it, I was an awkward person. I didn't know, I didn't trust anybody. I didn't know if anybody was going to hit me. I didn't know, it was because of the way I looked, the way I acted, whatever it was. So it was awkward. And I tell people that because I joined elementary school in the first grade, a lot of kids had joined in kindergarten. So they actually formed relationships early on. So here I come into the first grade. I really don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to interact with people. I don't know how to play sports. I think I'm stupid. It was a pretty messed up situation, but I mean, I did my best to try to get through it. But elementary school, up until a point where I had to drop out of school, it was pretty painful. I mean, I tried, and there was moments of clarity and where I kind of fit in. But just to give you an example, there was a time where I can't remember which grade it was. I'm really bad at time, but I remember that I was trying to fit in. I think I found this group of guys where they weren't the jocks, they weren't the most popular, but they weren't, the nerds that got picked on by everybody. I was just trying to find a place to fit. And these kids huddled up at recess one day and they said, oh, we're going to play baseball or something like that. Baseball, softball, kickball, one of those things. And they said, what position do you play? And I didn't have a dad. I never watched sports. And the only thing I'd seen on TV was sometimes they're playing baseball. And I said, okay, I play batter. And this is the God's honest truth. And there was like 5 or 6 kids there. And they're like, no, what position do you play? And I didn't know about shortstop, left field, right field. I just knew that there was a guy that went up there and hit the ball. I want to be that guy. And the kids started howling and laughing at me. And I was just like, okay, well, this is cool. So I became more into music, more into solitude, more into trying not to just be around people, because people, failed me. My mom failed me. My sister failed me. My biological father failed me. My grandparents failed me. I mean, up until that point, even up until 13 years old, when stuff really got bad, it was just a matter of surviving. It was just a matter of surviving. I started getting bullied in school. So I was bullied by older kids at school. And then I was bullied on my way home from school from people that lived in the neighborhood. So I didn't understand. I was like, okay, wow, I used to live in a black neighborhood and I thought it was because of the color of my skin. But now I'm just getting picked on and I'm just getting hated by family and everybody else. So it was a pretty depressing time in my life, God's honest truth. Wow. And that was just before 10 years old.
I can relate, man. So you wow. So are you saying that you dropped out of school at 13?
Yeah. So there was a date. There was a date I'll never forget. It was May 10th, 1982. Up until that point, after I hate calling him my stepfather, but it's the easiest thing to say. My mom got married. That guy went ballistic. My mom wound up having a partial stroke, and she stole his gun, and then he stole her dog, and she had to drive from Anaheim to Torrance with a stroke and almost crashed. And here I am trying to keep her going. And I was probably about 10 years old. But the long and the short of it, she lost her job. She was trying to save this cat, her favorite cat, Bunny Rabbit. The cat became sick with feline leukemia, and she started taking it to all these high-end hospitals and basically spent all of our rent money on trying to save this cat who ultimately died. And I remember my mom telling me, she goes, "We're gonna have to move." And I'm like, "Move? Where are we gonna go?" You know, and I was probably, at that time I was 12 or 13. And she says, "We'll just we got to start packing your room." And I remember she used to sell Avon. So I started packing some of my stuff in my room in these Avon boxes. And then one day I came home from school and my mom says, "Okay, you're not going to school anymore. We have to move." And I was just like, well, I'm in the 7th grade. I was probably midway through 7th grade in junior high school. I was fighting, I was doing drugs, I was smoking, I was drinking. Her husband's son came to live with us for about 4 months. That was a horrible experience. He introduced me to a lot of bad things. One day, a couple of days after I had dropped out of school, my grandfather shows up with a moving truck, and we are moving out of our 4-bedroom house in Anaheim into a 1969 Ford Country Squire station wagon with the wood paneling with 18 cats and 2 dogs. I was 13 years old. I was in the middle of 7th grade. And she lost the house. And because she wouldn't give rid of her animals, she would not compromise her animals. My grandfather offered to get us an apartment, get us a house, or do something like that, but we couldn't do it with 30 cats and 4 dogs. We only wound up with 18 cats and 2 dogs because we couldn't get them all into the car. She couldn't corral them enough. We had to give 2 dogs away, I think, on the spot, because my mom was a last-minute person. She tried to save everything except for the most important things she should have saved. So from losing the house until another point in my life, that was another period of true survival.
So you moved into a station wagon?
Yes. Yeah. We had to put all of our stuff into a storage unit. And I still remember driving away from the house. Most of my stuff was still out on the lawn, out in the driveway. Literally the renter had given her so much notice to get out that he was going to call the cops if we didn't show up. If we weren't off the property by 6 p.m., I think it was something like that he was going to call the cops and have us arrested. And so we literally got everything we could in the moving van, got everything we could in the station wagon. And my grandfather gave us a week's amount of money to stay at a hotel or stay at a motel, just a little up the road. And God's honest truth, it was a horrifying experience.
Wow, dude. At 13 years old.
Yeah.
So what happened after the week in the motel?
How much time do you have?
I'm trying to put, yeah.
The week in the motel, it was crazy. It was insanity. We actually, there's just so many different stories to tell, but essentially from 13 to 17, those 4 years, I was in and out of the car, sleeping on the streets. I slept in garages. I slept in somebody's abandoned van in their driveway. It was crazy. Every once in a while we would save up enough money, or my grandfather gave us a couple of bucks, and we would stay in a motel for a night or two and get cleaned up and stuff like that. But yeah, we just basically traveled around in our car. We had to hide from most everybody because we had the cats inside the car. So I put black trash bags on the back of the station wagon. And crazy enough, the station wagon, that was my job. So my job, we had 2 cat litter boxes on the bottom floor. So I wound up cleaning those all the time. So we didn't have any smell. So it was clean. But yeah, and during the day we would go around Orange County and try to hide out places, or stay at a park, or go to the storage unit and hide out there. Just trying to survive. And during the day we'd ride our bicycles and go collect cans, collect newspapers, dig through dumpsters, just try to do whatever we could to, like I said, buy cigarettes for mom, buy alcohol or whatever she needed, buy cat food, dog food, and then whatever was left usually was my claim to fame. And I tell this proudly because I did survive on it. Box of saltine crackers. So I would take a sleeve of crackers and get those and just drink a lot of water with the crackers to fill myself up in between going to churches and stuff like that to get, handouts and stuff like that.
Wow, dude. So, holy crap.
Oh, there's so much.
So you, wow.
Good morning.
Let me ask you a question. Do you own a cat? Do you have a cat?
Yes, I do. Actually, at one point I had 5 cats. I have 2 cats now and 1 dog. Yeah,
I would think you'd be like, I am so over cats. I'm never owning another cat again.
it was never the cat's fault. That's the way I look at it. It was my mom. My mom was basically, she used to say that she was 4 years old, and I never ever understood it until after she passed away, after doing a lot of deep-seated child psychology research for my coaching, and just trying to understand where it is that we get messed up. There's a point in our life that we get messed up, and usually it's between 0 and 5. And I've determined that. So I kept wondering why my mom would be, 40 years old saying, I'm 4 years old. And I'm like, no, Mom, you're a grown woman. Get your head out of your, you know what, and let's get going. You're a smart, brilliant person. And, she was cleaning the grounds at the motel, and she became an informant for the police department. She ran drugs for this guy named Jesse Anzaldua at the motel. Meanwhile, she was trying to play informant with the cops. And here I was going to work at Carl's Jr. during the day. I was 14 years old going to work at Carl's Jr. without a work permit. I pretended I was 16. And then after that, I was doing telemarketing at night, all to kind of like bring in a little bit of money so we could stay in a motel every once in a while. In between, drugs, alcohol, tried to commit suicide twice. Unfortunately, I sucked at it. It's a made for TV movie. Actually, I have a friend of mine that wants to do a screenplay on it. He's just like, dude, there's so many twists and turns in your life. And I don't share that for a feel sorry for me kind of thing, because everything that I went through has made me the man I am today. And I'm proud of who I am today. And I'm so thankful that I went through it. And I'm so thankful that I made the right decisions at the right moments. And I just trusted myself to succeed and to get through it and make some really honestly life-changing decisions that hurt me tremendously, but was the best for me.
What were you selling at 14 years old doing telemarketing? Is that an odd question?
No, I sold roofing appointments. I worked for a place called Ambercon. So I sold roofing appointments. I sold supplements. I sold phone services. I think at one time I sold solar hot water heating. I sold, I probably had like 15 telemarketing jobs in my life. It was just, sometimes I'd work 2 telemarketing jobs, one in the morning, one at night. Sometimes I'd work them at night and the weekends. It was crazy. It was a good opportunity because it taught me how to talk to people and get into sales a bit, and get me out of my comfort zone, because I was the quintessential introvert. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to say anything because I thought I was going to be judged. I kept my mouth closed. I was just, not to be seen or heard, trying to just do everything I could, not to get beat, not to get judged, not to, get laughed at. So it was just an interesting time, and had a gun put to my head one time because I went and buy a carton of cigarettes because they weren't my brand. Got carjacked one time. I mean, there's so much.
Wow.
And it's all the truth.
So you, by the way, pound of hearts for this dude, man. This is a great, great story. Give this guy some hearts. Don't stop.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, dude, you dropped out of school. I almost said high school. You dropped out of, or you were pulled out of school at 13. Did you ever go back?
Yeah. Actually,
did you?
Yeah, there was a point, Ken, that I want to share with everybody, because it was a super important time in my life. People ask me, like, how did you get out of that situation? What was the breaking point? What was the time that really kind of broke everything? And it was after literally the time I came back and I was walking through the motel parking lot, and there was drugs, alcohol, prostitution, cops there. My best friend, his dad was a judge for the Orange County Superior Court. So he was like sending his goonies to try to find his sons where I was living. It was all this other stuff going on. After I tried to commit suicide, I tried it with a bottle of Advil, which didn't work, obviously. I didn't know that. And then the other time I got really drunk and really high, and I took her car that she loved to death, the one we lived in, and I took it and I was going to run it into a brick wall. That was my goal, because my mom wasn't paying any attention to me. She was doing her thing with the Jesse and doing the thing with the cops, and I was working. I had no social life. I mean, literally, I was like a slave in a way. And I hate to say that. That's no comparison to what obviously slavery is. And after all of that happened, I was sitting at the top of the stairs in the motel, and I was looking out, and I thought, geez, and at this point I was 17. And I said, I've got really a couple opportunities here. I'm either going to wind up dead by my own volition or by saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. I'm going to wind up in jail because I'm hanging around the wrong people. Or I'm going to get the heck out of here. And I'm like, okay, so thank you, Sherry. So I had to figure, like, okay, I got to get out of here. My mom actually won the lottery while we were in the motel, while we were homeless. She won $5,000. We were like, oh my God, on a scratcher. We could have got out there. We could have got an apartment. I could have gone to school. We could have got some clothes. But that didn't happen. I mean, we got a couple of things, but yeah, she wound up blowing it. And I thought, I'm not going to get out of here with her. And I'm gonna have to do this on my own. So now I'm gonna have to leave her here. And she's dependent on me. I mean,
how old are you at this point?
17. Yeah. And so I coincidentally, one of the guys I worked with, that his son was with the judge. He was the judge's son. We went to work and we were telemarketing out of this guy's apartment, which sounds creepy, in Huntington Beach. And so we'd go there in the morning and we'd sell roofing appointments to businesses in Texas. And one day we went to school, went to work, and he says, well, boys, I got good news and I got bad news. And I said, well, I've had enough bad news to last a lifetime. So what's the good news? He goes, the good news is you can have my apartment. We were like, we look at each other like, what? You live in a really nice 2-bedroom apartment in Huntington Beach, Surf City, beautiful grounds. I mean, pool. And I mean, just for me, it was like the oasis. I lived in a rundown, horrible motel at that time. I mean, literally horrible. And so we look at each other and like, okay, what's the bad news? And he says, well, I'm going to close up shop and I'm actually going to move the operation to Texas. He goes, but I know you boys are staying in that motel. I know you guys are trying to get out. I know you guys are trying to save up money. And so I want to leave my apartment for you with first and last month and the security deposit. He goes, I trust you guys. He goes, you're not going to have a job. He goes, but you know, at least you have a place to live. And we looked at each other like, oh my God, we could do this. You know, we can get your brother, we can get Rambo, we can get Carlos, you know, we can get 5 guys in this 2-bedroom apartment and we can make the $800 a month rent. And honestly, Ken, I thought at that point in my life, and this is dead serious, I thought at that point in my life, 17 years old, all the stuff I had been through, that I would go back to my mom and she would finally say, because I was like, I'm just going to go ask her and see if she will just give me permission. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen? Cool. So I go back to the motel and I'm like,
to take over the apartment, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, so they said I could go take out the apartment, we could take over the apartment. And so I went back to the motel and I told my mom, and I thought she'd be like, I envisioned in my mind, I was like, she's going to be excited for me. She's like, yeah, you should get out. You know, I've screwed up your life enough. And really, and no, it was at that point, I had a lot of hurtful moments. It was one of the most hurtful moments of my life because she's like, you can't leave me. You're a selfish SOB. I mean, she called me every name in the book, told me I was a horrible person for leaving her there. And I've given you the encapsulated version of my life up until 17. I mean, I could tell you about the time I had a can of beans thrown at my head and cracked my head open because I didn't fill the cat's water bowl, all this stuff. And she starts calling me off. And it was something in that moment, Ken, where I was like, again, if I don't get out of here, what are my 3 choices? Dead, jail, or I got to leave.
Right.
And I certainly didn't want that. And so I actually stood up for myself. I was like, well, Mom, I'm going to leave the motel, but I'm not going to leave you. And so again, you know, all sorts of names and everything. And what I did, because I wanted her love, I wanted her affection. I always was, everything I did in my life was to try to prove to her that I was worthy enough for her love and her attention.
Right.
And so every night I would go do my day life. And every night I would go back to the motel. I would give her money. I would help her take care of the animals. I would do whatever I could. She had to get a job, because then I found out later in life when I was doing my research on psychology, I found out about codependency and all this. I'm like, okay, that was totally where we were at. I was literally becoming the man of the family at such even earlier than 13, dude. Yeah. I can tell you stories where I was going out and collecting cans, you know, my bicycle at 9 o'clock at night, crazy stuff. Right. And so I left. And then because of me leaving, she had to get stronger. So she had to get a job. She had to stop playing this fairy tale, you know, undercover spy BS that she was doing. And so she got a job, and slowly but surely, she started taking care of herself. And then I met this girl. She was actually my first wife, amazing woman that I'm still friends with today. And I met her dad. And it was I don't know if you ever saw the movie Valley Girl with Nick Cage.
No, I don't think so.
So Valley Girl with Nick Cage is basically this upper end, you know, high end girl who meets the punk rocker from the Valley. And, you know, it's this tale of how they intertwine. Well, my relationship with Tammy at the time was literally that. Her dad was a president of a trucking company. They lived in Fountain Valley, upper middle class. Mom, you know, had the roses everywhere in her house, and, you know, everything was ducks and beautiful. And, you know, here's this guy that has seen people shooting up in front of him.
Ducks.
Oh yeah. She had the whole, it was like, I want to say Mary Poppins. It was very pretty. It was just all really super nice.
Yeah.
And then she says, you know, she and I started dating. I had really long hair. I smoked cigarettes. I drank, smoked pot. And here I was, 17 years old. She was in high school. She was beautiful, popular, you know, it was just, and then she says, you know, I want you to meet my parents. And, and so I met her parents, and it was the God's honest truth. Bill White was her dad's name. He was so fundamental in my life in getting me to see things differently. And he says, why don't you consider going back to school? And I started laughing. I said, dude, I've been out of school since I was 13. I said, I can't go back to high school. I don't want to go back to high school. I heard about all that stuff. I would have probably gotten my butt kicked or been in jail or fighting or kicked out or something like that. I was going down a really bad path at that point because I started just rebelling against everything and realizing that I was strong enough and smart enough and supposedly smart enough. And he says, well, you can go back and get a GED. And I said, what the heck's a GED? And he says, a general equivalency diploma. He goes, you go back, what they do is they test you and see where you're at, brain smarts and everything. And then they'll give you teaching to get you up to where you need to do to pass the test. And right. I told him, and I didn't tell him this because I was trying to, win the heart of his parents or her parents and her. But I didn't have the heart to tell him that I was called stupid my entire life, that literally I did not know that I had the capacity to excel in anything. But because I was like, I latched on to this love and this normalcy, like a magnet. It was like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to have this kind of life. I want to be around these kind of people. I don't want to go back to that other stuff. I don't want to go back and see the inside of a jail or anything like that, which I had never did. And so I did what he said. And I called up Wintersburg High School in Huntington Beach, California. And I went down there and took the test. And I was shocked that I did. I think I only had to make up like 6 weeks. I had to do six weeks of modules and got my GED. And I went back to him and I'm like, look, I got my GED. And he's like, all right, Chris, what about college? I'm like, dude, you don't understand. I work 2 jobs. I live with 5 guys. We eat Wish sandwiches every night. Literally, my friend would take $3 that we could scrap between us and get a head of lettuce and some ketchup and bread. And we had these sandwiches. I mean, it was crazy. I'm like, you want me to go to college? Where am I going to do that? And he's like, right. Well, let me see if I can help you. So he really saw something in me and he taught me so much. So I went down to Golden West College in Huntington Beach. And I remember I was scared to death. I looked at that campus. I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'm a fraud. I don't know anything. I don't know how to be around people. I'm just figuring this all out. I'm just finally getting exposed to people who are normal.
Right.
So again, just one foot in front of the other, went to the college admission campus and said, hey, I want to go to school. And they said, okay, where are your transcripts and blah, where'd you go to school? And I'm like, well, here's my story. And they're just like, oh my God. And my first class was an interpersonal communications class, which was phenomenal. And I'm happy to say after another 10 years of school that I graduated with my master's degree in organizational management. I got my bachelor's degree. I wound up getting married to that girl and we were together for 5 years. A lot happened in between all that. It was, but Bill taught me to believe in myself, and he is the reason why. I shouldn't say he's the reason, but he is a significant factor in the reason why I'm where I'm at today. And that's why I pay it forward and pay it back to kids, because I want them to know that there's somebody in their life that believes in them too.
Wow, dude. Wow. So
that's so much.
Hey, man, you stop going to school at 13 years old and you end up with a master's degree, a GED, then bachelor's, and then master's degree.
Yeah, I did associate. It took me 5 years to get my associate's degree, working 2 jobs.
Wow.
And then I got my bachelor's degree, went to University of Phoenix, I did the accelerated courses there. So it was the 18 weeks and 9 weeks. So I would do accelerated courses in there while I was working my full-time job. While I was doing my bachelor's and my master's degree, that's all I did was work, school, study group, exercise. And I would see my girlfriend 1 day a week. I did that for, from 1994 to 2000.
That's incredible, dude.
All I did was just work and school.
So, a lot of people that have been through, I mean, let's face it, we've all been through stuff in life, man, that's tough. And they always say, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I always heard, God will never give you more than you can handle. And I thought, I wish you were sometimes highly of me.
Yeah, I know you've been through a lot. I've read your book. And by the way, guys, if you have not read Ken's book, that is a phenomenal story too. I mean, we're both 2 huge survivors and passionate people that want to help the world. So if you have not read his book, please go read his book as well. But yeah.
This isn't about me. This is about you, dude. Thank you for that. But listen, man, I think that what you've done, Bob Donnell, I love this dude right here, man.
Thank you guys, everybody.
So, you got your master's degree. What year was that you got that?
2000. So in 2000, I got my master's degree. And then the year after that, I bought my first house. That was my whole goal while I was homeless, was like, I remember this vividly, sleeping on the back seat of that station wagon, the vinyl seat. I remember just being scared. I remember actually being raining. It's funny enough that it's raining out. And just saying that I just want a house. I just want a place that nobody can take away from me, a place I can go where nobody's going to judge me. Nobody's going to beat me. Nobody's going to do anything. I just want my own spot. And that was my whole focus throughout everything. And then in 2001, through the urging of my boss at the time, she's like, you should try to buy a house. You should try to buy a house. I'm like, I can't afford a house. Are you crazy? And so I came out here to Riverside. I lived in Orange County. I lived there near the beach in an apartment. And so then I bought my first house in 2001, and it was like, I got my master's degree, I got a house. And that's when things started really taking off as far as being able to contribute back to society.
Wow. So you got a house. Where were you working?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, I had my full-time job.
Okay. Which was what?
At that time, I started off as an export documentation specialist for a company called Patty. And then just through 26 years of hard labor, I wound up leaving there last November as the director of operations. So I'd stayed there 26 years, rose up through the ranks, became a manager when they told me I couldn't become a manager. I had so many people who were like, Chris, you don't have what it takes to be a manager. You don't have the people skills. You don't have the relationship skills. And again, I didn't. I mean, think about where I came from. So what did I do? I started reading a ton of books, cassette tapes. I would go to the library. I tell people I would go to the library and get Les Brown cassette tapes, Zig Ziglar cassette tapes, Tony Robbins cassette tapes, all these cassette tapes. And people were like, what are you doing? And I would do that in between. I was doing my schoolwork. And I was like, okay, if you don't think I can manage people, then I'm going to do everything in my power to learn what it takes to manage people. I read, I'm drawing a blank, famous CEO. Oh, gee, it doesn't matter. I read his story. I read autobiographies, read about past presidents, started learning about Abraham Lincoln and his leadership skills, and proved him wrong. And then one day I went into my boss's office and I said, I want to become a supervisor. And she said, she told me I didn't have what it takes. And I said, give me a year. And she goes, let me just tell you something, Chris. She goes, nobody in the warehouse trusts you. And I said, why? I'm out there trying to help them all the time. And this is a very key component. I was always trying to help them because I was trying to gain significance. I was trying to gain that approval because I was a smart person. I was very industrious. I was very resourceful. But the way I came across as a know-it-all. I was trying to help them, but what I was doing indirectly was making them feel bad that they couldn't figure it out themselves. So I would see somebody basically nailing their finger to the board, and I'd walk over, hey, have you tried it this way? And so I was alienate people. So I started reading these leadership books and understanding about what motivates and inspires people and, how to get past those things. And then I came back a year later and she's like, wow, Chris, she goes, I talked to the team and they really respect and admire you now. And I was like, yeah, because I put in the work, I put in the effort, I sweat equity.
You let them nail their finger to the board.
Literally, I did. Literally, I can't. There was times where I was like, Chris, I'd see somebody doing something completely stupid. I'm like, hey, Joe, how you doing? Hey, Bob, how you doing? And then just keep right on walking. There was like, wow, you didn't stop and try to correct me. And I was like, hey guys, if you want my help, then here's where it is. And
right. So once you got your master's degree, I mean, did your income go up? Did everything start improving?
Yeah, it did. I was on a much better trajectory at that point. My wife and I at the time, we split up. We were married for 5 years. Still great friends to this day. Actually, my current wife and her friends. It's really cool. I'm friends with most of my exes. I think all of them. I think one of them passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, things started going better. I started, moving up in my career, started making more money. It was still a challenge. When I moved into my house, literally there were times where I couldn't go to work because I didn't have gas money. There were times where I couldn't pay the gas bill or the electric bill. So I was like playing that game. And that's right when floating checks was like, you couldn't do that anymore. Because my mom had taught me about floating checks. I mean, she thought that the world just was based on a checkbook, and she overran her checkbook and did all sorts of bad things. So yeah, I hunkered down for those 2 years. I ate top ramen. This is no joke. I ate top ramen, macaroni and cheese, not even the blue box sometimes, even just like the standard, whatever the cheapest macaroni and cheese was, whatever it was I had to do to survive to get through those things. Yeah. I did it. And then progressively just kept doing the work, kept showing up, kept volunteering, and then progressively just started making more money and excelling in my career. And then, and that's when I just decided, I'm like, okay, I got to do something with this. And somebody said, there's this thing called coaching. And I started speaking because people were like, people need to hear your message. And I'm like, okay, what does that look like? What do you do? And so I said, I want to go back and I want to talk to kids, and I want to tell kids that or like me, I want to go back and tell them, hey, listen, no matter what somebody puts into your brain, you can get out of that. You can, no matter how desperate, how dire it is. I've heard stories that are 10 times worse than mine and people have come out of it. It's just the direction of what you want to do. And I said, I want to go back and I want to tell these kids that it's going to be okay. And one of the greatest events that happened in my life, Ken, because I want to turn it around to be more positive. One of the greatest events of my life, and this is on my YouTube page, is that the school I dropped out of, the 7th grade, I dropped out of Brookhurst Junior High. It was so coincidental. I was out to having drinks with a buddy of mine. And I said, you know, one of the greatest things in my life would be to go back to that school I dropped out of and let them know where I wound up. And swear to God, he goes, what school did you go to? And I said, Brookhurst Junior High in Anaheim. And he goes, my wife is a gym teacher there. And I'm like, no way. He's like, way, wow. No way. And so he says, let me talk to her. And I said, cool. And long and the short of it was, like 3 or 4 days later, maybe a week later, principal heard my story and says, yes. So I got to go back to the school I dropped out of. It was so cool. I remember it like it was yesterday. I have so many pictures. Walking into the gymnasium, I just get chills. I get chills. Ugh. Walking in the gymnasium, and I was just like, I swear to God, it's no joke. It was just so cool. And seeing the 7th and 8th grade class come in. And here's the thing, Ken, because you keep saying like you were only this old. I didn't know how young I was until I saw those kids. I was like, I saw these. I still get chills. God. I'm like, wait a minute. I was your age when I was like digging through dumpsters and supporting my mom and doing all this stuff. It blew my socks off. I just stood there and went, wow. So I got to speak to the 7th and 8th grade class that day. I got to tell my story, and I just got to connect with them and say, listen, guys, I know you're probably in situations like this. Please do not ever give up on yourself, but you're going to have to make tough choices. If I would not have made that tough choice to leave my mom in that situation, I probably would have been dead or in jail or God knows what. So it was just a beautiful experience.
That's incredible, dude. First, 2 things. Number 1, Top Ramen gets a bad rap, man. I love Top Ramen. Number 2,
especially with a little extra seasoning.
You put a little extra seasoning. You could throw some cheese in there. It's Top Ramen.
Yeah.
So, matter of fact, I'm gonna go get some today. So
I've inspired the Top Ramen.
So if you could, 1 year after you dropped out of school, so let's say you're 14 years old. If you could go back to your 14-year-old self and give him some words of advice or wisdom, or what would you say to your 14-year-old self?
Honestly, it's the same thing I say to everybody else. And I say to myself still, never, ever give up. Never, ever give up. You are worth more than the people who fill your brain full of scarcity and fear. You are worth more than what you believe you are. Sometimes you have to believe in what other people believe in you to make it and to succeed. I've been helping people that recently. I'm like, sometimes you just have to go on the faith that other people have in you, and you just have to understand that. That's what I had to do with Bill. I didn't understand what it was or anything. And it was such a beautiful experience being with him, because we became really, really close. He became the one father figure in my life aside from my grandfather. He believed in me, but I would go back and tell my 14-year-old self, don't ever give up, no matter how hard it gets, because there's actually, I keep this graphic on my desk all the time. It's one of my favorite graphics.
Yep.
I keep it in front of me at all times. It's like, you never know where you're going to be. And there was so many times I wanted to give up. Like I said, that night I drove the car, I wanted to kill myself. I really did. But it's funny, when you're driving down the freeway, you can't find any brick walls in front of you. And I literally couldn't find a wall to slam the car into. And I just wound up, miraculously, I wound up driving the 5 freeway to the 605. You wouldn't know this. I did this big, probably 40-mile loop in the station wagon. I don't even know if it had gas. I mean, obviously it had gas in it. But literally I was like, I can't kill myself. So I just better drive the car home before I get in trouble, back to the motel. She never even knew I was gone.
Wow.
Never knew I was gone.
So you said that your mother ended up passing away. Was that recently, or?
It was 8 years ago.
Wow. And were you on good terms with her at the time? And
yeah. No, that's an important part of the story is also, Ken, is that my mom, as much as she was a part of my situation that caused me to have to go through a lot of stuff in my life,
Yeah.
She was also an inspiration. That woman never gave up. And so she was the last, this is no joke, she was the last person living in that motel, the Siesta 7 motel in Anaheim, California. She was like, they turned out the power and she was still on. There was no power. I had to go rescue her in the middle of the night in a van. I had to go rent a cargo van. Long and short of it was that they widened the 5 freeway over that property. So everybody got relocation money. And she wound up getting, I think, $7,000. And to her credit, she said, I'm never leaving this place until I can get a 4-bedroom house with a pool. To her credit, she was the last person in that place. I had to rescue her out of there with the cats, and she had 1 dog left. And she bought a house. She bought a house in Corona, California, 4-bedroom house with a pool. So she literally went from nothing, a room with no air conditioning, with 18 cats and 1 dog, to a 4-bedroom house. She got a job, and we became, like I was telling you off camera, we got into music. She started getting heavy metal. We started going to concerts and everything. But when I was a kid, Ken, she smoked cigarettes. And I remember being in school, it was when the big no smoking campaigns were on. And I would go home and I'd ask her, like, Mom, can you please quit smoking? Can you please quit smoking? And she would tell me emphatically, she would say, F off, F off. This is my body. This is my life. This has nothing to do with you. Don't tell me what to do. I mean, every time I would bring it up, she would just get voracious and just get mad. And then it was, geez, I'm so bad at years, but it was 2 years before she passed away. She started having problems. She had to go into the hospital. She got bit by her dog. She got an abscess. She wound up having surgeries. Things started going crazy. They found out she had lung cancer. And so they did a needle biopsy. They said she has lung cancer. She wound up having to have her leg amputated because she had, I learned so much about the body. So basically she had peripheral arterial disease. So she had to have her leg amputated. I have pictures of her leg where it looked like it was barbecued. She would not give up. I mean, it was horrendous. So I had to convince her to have her leg amputated at UCI Medical Center. Went through all that with her, got her rehabilitated, was going to get her a prosthetic leg. She wouldn't quit smoking, and it just kind of went down from there. So, and I used to tell her, I'm like, wow, Mom, when I was a kid, I used to beg you not to smoke, and you used to tell me it was none of my business and da-da-da. But who's here? Who has to go through all these medical appointments? Who has to watch you get your leg amputated? Who has to watch you, sit in your trailer? She lost her house again, I bought her a trailer to live in there. I mean, just a horrible situation. And I was with her. I went through all the different operations. She had a tumor, her cancer metastasized to her back. She had a tumor on her back. It was like huge. And I finally got her to go get that taken off and was in the hospital with her and all that other stuff. But yeah, I was with her. I was by her bedside when she passed away. I held her hand and caressed her forehead. We hugged, but we never said, I love you much. Or we would say, love you, but not, I love you. And I remember just sitting there, I got the call from the place and they said, your mom's probably not going to make it through the night. And coincidentally, we were moving into this house at the time because she wanted to come live with us. But I'm like, no, you're not going to come live with us. There was too many other issues going on. But yeah, I was with her and I held her hand. I said, Mom, it's going to be okay. Mom, it's going to be okay. And then she passed at 1:30 in the morning. 1:33 in the morning. The crazy thing, Ken, here's the beautiful part of it. Her entire life was filled with pain, struggle, all because of her own worst. She was her own worst enemy. And the God's honest truth, Ken, is I walked outside after she passed and I knew she took her last breath. And I went outside and we were literally going to be moving houses like in 4 hours. And I stood out there and I'm like, wow. And it was on this hill above my house. So I could kind of see the city of Riverside, and it started pouring rain. It was July 31st, 2011, I believe. And it started pouring rain. And I'm like, that is symbolic of her pain getting released. And wow. We went through the day. I didn't tell my friends until later on. I'm like, I told my wife, I said, I don't want to tell them that my mom just died. I don't want to bring everybody down. So yeah, we moved in the rain, and then people were kind of like, wow, Chris, you don't seem the same. And I could pretty much fake it. And I just said, listen, I don't want to lie to you guys. And I pulled everybody together and I said, listen, my mom passed away a few hours ago. So I'm a little weirded out, just getting through. And my friends were awesome and we got moved. And I don't regret it. I was there with her, and I've learned to understand her a lot more because I dove into that psychology and I dove into where she got stuck and where she screwed herself over. And it's able to help me help other people go back to those times and give it a different meaning so they don't screw themselves up constantly. I usually say another word, but they could screw themselves over.
So, dude, like, holy crap. That's the thing, man. We all look back we all look back at our lives and we all, reflect on the past, and a lot of people stay stuck. Your mother saying that she was 4, you said she acted like she was 4.
Mm-hmm. She's stuck there.
I always look at it like, something traumatic probably happened to her when she was 4 or whatever age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I try to see it from the perspective of, okay, something really jacked up happened to this person at a very whatever age, right? And now I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that it's a choice to stay there.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe it's a choice. And I also believe that people become so paralyzed by the fear of that trauma that they just stay. It's just more comfortable to stay there, to be a victim, to be whatever. Dude, I'm first off, I'm proud of you for what you've become and where you, dude, you came out of some crap, man. And I look at it like, I've looked at my life. You read my book, and I'm like, wow, it was tough. And there were a lot of tough parts, but dude, I don't know that I could have survived what you went through, quite frankly. I mean, you went through a lot of stuff, and here you are, man, wearing a bandana, sporting a goatee. Or is that
yeah, I'm just me being me, honestly, dude. And I still struggle. People sit there and will have the assumption like, Chris, you have it figured out. You're always so positive and you're always so, upbeat, and you're always, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to pretend I'm one of those freaking motivational speakers. I said freaking, one of those motivational speakers that has it all together, that goes on stage and says, oh, here, buy my products. I have it all figured out. It's so great. Here, spend all your money and lose it all. And, I'm like, yeah, I have bad days. I have bad moments. I have bad weeks where I just sit there and I start, I get into that vicious circle. Like, okay, what if? And then I just take my own advice. It's like, Chris, all you can do is be in the moments. All you can do is grow your brain. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly listening to shows like yours, constantly enriching my brain. Otherwise I will get negative, and I can go down that rabbit hole. I was down that rabbit hole for 2 years. From 2015 to 2017, really, in between trying to find, we were going through failed IVF. We tried IVF, that failed. We tried conceiving naturally, that failed. And then we went through the adoption process. And that's how most people, I don't know if anybody knows it, but that's how we got Jackson, was that we signed up for adoption, and lo and behold, we got picked. And literally the time between we got picked and the time I became a dad was 10 days. And I'm a planner. I'm like, I got to plan stuff. We didn't have the room ready. We didn't have Jack ready. I was ready to give up on having a kid. I was 48 at the time. I said I was going to have a kid when I was 40. And, Jackson showed up. We've had him since birth. He's been amazing. So yeah, you just have to show up, and you have to constantly keep going. You have to keep focused. You have to keep responsibility for your actions and your beliefs and what you are putting into your brain. If you're watching the news, guess what? That's what the result is going to be. Yep. Angst and anger and anxiety and what if, and trying to predict the world and assumptions. It's like, just focus on what it is that you can do in the moment and never give up.
And look, I and you said something a minute ago about, I'm not one of those motivational speakers that'll take all your money and say, go broke. But here's the thing, man. And I hear what you're saying. However, I've bought many motivational speakers, many motivational speakers, courses and books and cassette programs and everything else. And they did nothing for me. I stayed broke. I gave them all my money and I stayed broke, and nothing changed. Is that their fault or my fault?
Oh, no, it's not their fault.
It's 100% my fault. Yeah. Right.
But about the incongruency of them.
When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when it's like Glenn Morshower was saying yesterday, I was in one of his acting classes, and he said, talking about this book called Power versus Force, which is an amazing book. And he asked me, he said, do you like the book? And I said, oh, I love the book. I've read it twice. And he said this, he said, listen, and this is very, very true. And I knew this already, but I kind of had forgotten. And it said, you did not read that book. A previous version of you read that book, but now you've grown, you've become something different. So that book when you read the book now, it could have a completely different meaning. And you may, in recovery, we call it removing the layers of the onion, right? The more that you go through something, the more layers are removed. So, dude, I think you are freaking unbelievable. What you've come through and where you are, man. Holy crap.
Thanks.
Unbelievable.
I'm no different than anybody else, but thank you. Yeah, I'm just, and just to clarify, I didn't mean that their products weren't motivational. I was just talking about the incongruency of a lot of the speakers that I met who come out on stage and say they're one thing, but behind stage, there's something completely different. That was the products. If you get the products, they're good. If you use them, yes, of course. But yeah, I was just talking about the incongruency of some of the speakers that I met in the time I've been doing this. But no, the knowledge is there. The power is there. I tell people all the time, I've told people this emphatically, if you read these 5 books, you don't have to pay me anything. If you read these 5 books and every time you get done with an aha moment and you write that aha moment down and you send it to me and you tell me how you're going to apply it, if you read these 5 books, I promise you, and you apply them, your life will be dramatically different. Do you know how many people have actually read the 5 books and come back to me and said, wow, Chris, you're right? Probably 3. And I've done it thousands of times. I'm like, just go read these 5 books. I can even recite them off to you. It's just, you have to want it. You have to want to get out of that victim mind space. There's so many opportunities I could go back to, Ken, and tell you about this situation, that situation. It's like, you just have to keep going. You have to put yourself first. And that was the hardest thing for me to do, because I thought I was a POS. I didn't have any self-respect until that moment where I said, I can't continue doing this, Mom. I can't. I'm going to wind up dead or in jail. And it hurt, but she became stronger and I became stronger.
Dude, it amazes me that at 17 years old, you had the foresight to say, I can't keep doing this with you, Mom. Like, what? Like, what? I mean, that's a gift. And I think that if you look back over your life, and I'm not trying to break all religious on anybody, but it's more than obvious to me. And I would say there are people in the audience that would agree with this. There was a higher power. I'll call him God. There was a higher power that had your back.
Oh, 1,000%.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've had guardian angels around me. I've learned about spirit guides. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was a time where I almost got into a horrible car accident, and I know that somebody took the wheel. I know that somebody took the wheel and kept me from dying. Oh, yeah. That's
incredible, dude. Mm-hmm. So what's the best place for everybody to follow you?
Simply ChristopherRausch.com, RAUSCH, ChristopherRausch.com. You go there. My social media is there. My YouTube's there. Would love to connect with everybody. I'm probably connected with a lot of people here, but I just want to thank you again, Ken, for the time and to be on here. It's such an honor and a privilege to get to know you and be in your group of people and meet all these fantastic people. I'm going to go back and read all these comments after this.
Is that it right there? ChristopherRausch.com.
Yep. That's the one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then all of your social media is on there and all that.
Yep. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, everything.
So we're not done, dude.
Okay. No, I've got nothing. My wife's downstairs watching the kid. I'm good. Got my coffee.
So my wife's on here giving you props, man.
Thank you. I'm just me being me. That's honest. That's all I can do. I've been so many other personalities. I've been so many other things in my life. I was the suit and tie speaker. I've been everything. And it just ultimately it's taken this journey until 51 to kind of just realize, just be you. Just be you, whoever you are, however you are. You're going to find the right people. You're going to find the right vibe. It's just some days are more challenging than others, but you just get through them. You get through them together.
So let me ask you this. I know you do coaching, you do, some amazing things, but if I were to ask you, dude, what do you think? And you've heard me ask other guests this probably. And the number one answer out of 230 some interviews is fear, just so you know. Gotcha. What do you think keeps most people stuck? There are people that are homeless. I've been homeless too. There are people that are homeless. And I wrote a book. Looking back, the 4 times that I've been homeless in my life, I chose that. I could have made a different choice. I could have definitely made different choices. I chose it, right? So, but what do you think keeps most people stuck, man?
Oddly enough, I won't say fear. I'll say belief. I know it's people's belief systems, because in the coaching that I do, that's one of the first things that we have to do is change around your belief system. And most times when I've asked people on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute, how important do you believe you are? How much do you believe that your health and your satisfaction and your wellness is the most important thing in life? And most people will say a 4 or 5 or 6. Sometimes they'll feel bad, and I can tell they'll reach for a 7. I'm like, okay, so what do you believe? Who do you believe deserves more emphasis and more love and more self-care than yourself? Well, my kids or my husband or my parents, or whatever it is, somebody I'm making up into a society. And you are worthy of success. And if you don't believe you're worthy of having the ability to overcome your own limited beliefs, I often say you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. That says it all. If you believe that it's like Henry Ford is one of the best quotes in the world. If you believe you can or you can't, you will. So you have to change around your belief pattern. Fear, yes, is tied in that, because you're afraid of what are people going to think. But you have to have the belief that you don't care necessarily what people think. Yes, it's natural to care what people think. I still care what people think all the time. I'll tell people I don't, but I do. It's just how humans work. But the belief system has to be there, that that you're worthwhile to invest in yourself and to take those risks and to push past that fear. The belief has to be there first. I had to believe that I could make it. I had to believe that even if my mom told me, she tried to have me arrested for taking my own car. There's so many stories, dude. So many stories. I had to have that faith. I had to have that faith. And I've had to have that faith in my life, like going to school, and had to have my faith about becoming a coach and a speaker and leaving my day job for 26 years. You have to have that belief. You have to have the belief that the fear it's 98% of all fears are never realized. It's all just stuff that's made up in our mind to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves in our comfort zones. Once you break out of that, life is limitless.
Wow, dude, you are an inspiration. Your story is unbelievable. Like it's truly incredible. And I'm glad and very, very honored to call you a friend, man. You're a good dude.
Likewise. I truly mean that. And I appreciate that, dude, from the bottom of my heart. That's just the way I live my life. I just try to be me, just try to show up and just serve and just help people by being, vulnerable and congruent and transparent. It's like, this is how we heal. This is how you get forward. This is, life is not going to be perfect. There's lots of people I've talked to in the last couple of weeks since you and I become friends. And, you just have to just take it moment by moment, just focus on what it is that you have a hand in, not all the other stuff that's uncertain and that you don't have control over. And slowly but surely, if you keep enriching your mind, we live in an amazing society. We have Google and YouTube. I had to go to the library to check out books, Waking the Giant Within. I had to go, do all that stuff, but everything is right where we can get to it. You just have to want it bad enough and just have to put one foot in front of the other and ask for help.
One last question.
Sure. You can ask me anything.
Somebody calls you up and they say, my car was repossessed last week. My electric's being shut off tomorrow. Don't have enough money to eat. Don't know what to do. I've tried everything and I just don't know what to do. What do you say to that person to get them through that moment?
Wow. Never had anybody necessarily in that particular moment, but I've had people who were ready to commit suicide. I've talked a lot of people off the ledge. Ultimately, you have to, what I would tell that person is that this is not indicative of your whole entire life. This is a summation of the decisions and the choices you made up until now. It's up to you now to make different decisions, to do different actions. Dr. Wayne Dyer says, if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to continue to get what you've always got. Or he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. You have to refocus your intent, because now you're in this spot where you don't have a job and you don't have money and you can't pay the rent. But what can you do? You can go out and get a job. You go out, work at McDonald's and go rent a room, or go get a gym membership for $22 a month. And just, you're going to have to fight and scrape and ask people for help. Most people are too proud to ask for help. I know a few people that have had major success in their life, and they're afraid to tell people that their business has lost money. They're afraid to fall on their sword and say, hey, I need some help. Hey, I know people that are in the positive space area and they got downright negative. They wouldn't ask anybody for help. It's like, it's not asking for help. It's we're brothers and sisters in this journey together.
Right.
And when you lean out, and I love helping people, but I want to help people that want to help themselves. And that's one of the toughest things, that when you have to turn somebody away because they don't truly want to help themselves. But it's just about changing those momentary decisions, just saying, hey, can I go crash on a buddy's couch? Can I swallow my pride and apologize to my sister that I haven't talked to in 10 years? I mean, I haven't talked to my sister in a long time. There's things you can do to get out of that situation. But again, you have to be resourceful. You have to want it bad enough, and you have to get out of your own victimhood.
Amen, dude. Wow. Joe Ingram has I was going to say I have one last question, but Joe has a question. There Sure. It is.
If I were a pirate, what would my pirate name be? Captain Kickass. I play pirates with my son, as a matter of fact.
That's so awesome, dude. Wow, man. What a great story. I love your story, man. I know it was painful, but man, it laid the groundwork for you to be a huge inspiration and help to others.
Thank you. It means a lot. Means a lot.
Yeah, man. Thank you for taking the time being on here. Thank you to everybody who's watched and shared this out. If you didn't share, that means you're selfish. Just saying.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
I'm not afraid to call people out, man. Share this out. It's inspirational. Yes. Somebody in your friends list needs to hear this story, so share it out. Mm-hmm. Chris, thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Love you, dude. You're amazing.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. You're awesome and a blessing, Ken. I can't wait to just do more stuff and learn more from you and just share and contribute. So, and I plan on going back and looking at all the questions. So thank you guys. I haven't had a chance to look at them because I wanted to focus on this, but just want to thank you guys sincerely from the bottom of my heart for everything. And I just hope that I can help you and inspire you and just get through this time and just excel and just thrive and just realize we're more the same than we are different.
That's right. Thank you guys. Hang in there with me for a minute, Chris, if you would. And I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you guys. Appreciate all of you.
Thank you guys.